Wow. What a day, huh? It's the third party fairy back on March 7th for the Israel edition, the Iran edition, the Iran edition, the Persia edition when my grandfather fought in World War II. He was a mechanic, and it was, he called it Persia. Anyway, so much distraction going on, huh? It's hard to know what's the distraction from the distraction from the distraction from the distraction, isn't it? Like Iran, Epstein, the election was rigged, his taxes. The distractions are all to distract from the two-party failures. That's what it is. So for those who have not been keeping track or haven't been keeping score or have been triggered into fight or flight mode, and that turns off our memory circuits so we forget what's happened recently. We just know there's an enemy and to be afraid. So anyway, the distraction, someone asked on a post, like, well, what is the distraction that you're talking about? And I'm talking about the fact that anything that doesn't make it clear the root of all the problems or the two-party system stranglehold grips on our imaginations in the future is the problem. Anything that doesn't shine a light on that, that's the distraction. So, for example, right now people are like, Trump, GOP, Iran, Israel. And I've been posting a lot about this, that, in 2024, the Democratic Party lost the election because they are so pro-Israel, pro-military. And that's because the Democratic Party is beholden to their interests, not to voters. They would rather lose an election than cross their donors. They did that in 2016. Now, let me stop and say this, okay? If someone, I'm trying to not use the word you, I try to use we and I. I don't mean to be lecturing. I'm not trying to come from a place of superiority. I don't know better than you. But what I've noticed is that when people are inside of a fight and they see folks that are outside of the fight, they think that the people outside of the fight are holier than thou. Like, there's a fight in the cafeteria and everyone runs into the cafeteria. And I'm watching the fight in the cafeteria, but I'm not part of it. I'm like, this is crazy. And they're like, oh, you need to be in here fighting. So it's been very interesting taking this position of the middle path and how triggering it is for hyper-partisan liberals and progressives. And I apologize for that. I'm merely trying to help. Because studies show that we are most influential against our peers and not our opposites. I do a lot of climate work. I've been a journalist, a radio broadcaster, a speaker. It's been my life for decades. And I've learned how important it is to communicate in ways that can help elevate the conversation. And that's merely what I'm hoping to do. Because I can see what's happening and I can see everyone's triggered. But the deal is this. In 2024, the Democrats knowingly lost the election because of their tacit support for Israel and arming them and giving them money. We know this because the Democratic Party, for the first time, and I'm not sure how long, because it wasn't that important to me, but you could find out if it's important to you. For the first time, the Democratic Party is refusing to release their own post-mortem assessment of what they did wrong. They're supposed to analyze what they did wrong and why they lost the election and how to not do it again. And if the reasons were Elon and all these, GOP things that help further this us and them, you can bet that they would have released it. Why would they hide it? Why would the Democratic Party hide their own assessment of why they lost the election? Ask yourself that. If it was the bad guys and the other guys, why would they keep that a secret? Now, I've been posting links and sharing with people the fact that it's very well known what's in the report, and that is that the election was lost. Of course, there's not just one reason, but there is one primary reason that last election hinged on. And the Democratic Party knew it, and they could have won or lost it, and they intentionally lost it because they will not waver on arming Israel and supporting them with their illegal violence and baby-killing regime and retribution and revenge. Now, I apologize if this is triggering to my Jewish friends. We as human beings shouldn't be attached to any sort of murderous violence. They don't speak for any of us. Just like the United States government doesn't represent us, the Israeli government doesn't represent Jewish people or the religion. They've both been hijacked by business interests and violence. Anyway, point being, in 2024, the Democrats made a choice. We can either win this election by disavowing our support for Israel and acknowledging support for Gaza and retaining the crucial under 35 vote that got them the win in 2020, or they could toe the donor line and worship Israel and their violent, illegal tendencies to overreact to their situation and murder innocent babies that they don't like. Children. Everyone should be ashamed of this situation. Everyone that voted for Democrats or Republicans should be ashamed of the blood that's on their hands. But they won't be. No, because the two parties don't want you to think about that. No, it's them, right? It's them. It's always somebody else. Truth of the matter is, the Democratic Party lost the election on purpose because what's more important to them is their donor base, maintaining power. They're both business parties. They're both pro-military, pro-business, pro-Israel. The Democratic Party is a fake Green Party. They're a pro-business party, always have been. The two parties are both pro-business, pro-military, pro-Israel. The difference is the businesses have realized that if they just keep two sides angry at each other and fighting, let's make this business-backed pro-Israel, pro-military, pro-business party favor like white racist people and Christians. And then let's make this pro-business, pro-military, pro-Israel party make it seem like that they favor like everybody else. And then if they fight each other and they never have any other options, then the business interests win, and the military wins, and Israel wins. And you know who loses? The American people, the rest of the world in the future. Shoot. Okay. So the Democrats lost the election because of Israel, which gave a tacit wink and a nod to Israel that it's okay to massacre people and kill innocent people. We will give you the money and weapons to do it. Notice how quiet the Democratic Party is. You hear that giant speech that Chuck Schumer gave? How about Nancy Pelosi? How about the head of the DMC? Boy, that was a fiery speech they gave, tearing down the U.S. and Israel for murdering almost 200 girls who are trying to get educated into being the women of the future. But they weren't white. They weren't male. They weren't Christian. They weren't Jewish. They weren't Democrats. They weren't Republicans. So who cares in America? We do. The two parties don't. Anyway, so the problem is it's all a distraction. It's all a distraction from the fact that the two parties are ruining the world and ruining the future. It's a joke. The system is set up to make sure that the minority stays in power. Trump has never broken 50% of the vote in all three elections, yet he's been put in power twice. The Republicans have control of the Senate, but as I said in part 1 of my third party fairy series, the GOP hasn't represented a majority of Americans in a third of a century. So the system is designed to keep the minority elevated. The fake Democratic Party, the fake Progressive Party, doesn't want that system to change at all. No plan to change that at all, because it serves the purpose of business and military. If you just keep two sides, then we'll own all of them. They'll fight each other. It works, doesn't it? Just look at Facebook. Holy crap. Look at the media. So anyway, here's how we get out of this, though. We recognize that from a social standpoint, yeah, of course one party is worse than the other. That's not this discussion. That's not this argument. Please stop it. Please stop it. Please stop it. Please stop with the Democratic Party propaganda designed to distract you from the fact that we need more than two parties. That's the fewest parties possible that we can have on the planet. Any fewer and we don't have any choices. Now, why do they have what we want in Europe? They've got climate action, gun control, women's rights, workers' rights, childcare, healthcare, education, all of these things. Because last century, their nations and societies and agreements and laws were torn down. They started from scratch and they allowed multiple parties. There's always going to be one backwards facing group in any nation or country that wants to return to the privilege they had. Granted, that's just logic. As I mentioned in part 1 of the Third Party Fairy video series, we all want to hold on to our privilege. We don't have to blame or shame people. Do you want to have worse clothing than you have? Would you like to have worse food, worse housing? Would you like to have worse of anything that you have? No, why would we? So listen, people that had privilege and born into it, they want to keep it, right? We all want to keep our privilege, unless we know it's harming somebody. So granted, in every nation or country, there's going to be a backwards facing group. Fine, they're always a minority, just like the Republicans are. But in the rest of the developing world that has all the things we don't, what do they have that we don't? More than two parties. Why does that matter? Because you have one backwards facing group, but then you're supposed to have multiple groups facing forward, from the most conservative that are like, you know what, we do need to change, but just a little bit, to the middle that's like, you know, we need more change than that, to the progressive that's like, we need a lot of change now. And then they all agree on this change and they outvote the backwards people. And that is what is happening all around the world except here. Because of propaganda, two-party propaganda. The Democrats work with the GOP to ensure there's never a third party. Because as soon as we have a third party, Congress gets broken open. We're not trying to get a president, you guys. We're not trying to get a stop believing the propaganda. This isn't a personality contest. Gavin, whoever. JD, whoever. AO, whatever. The important thing is we need to break the two parties, and to do that, you need somebody in Congress. You need to break that in Congress. Well, that's easy to do. As soon as you start getting a third party in Congress, then you no longer have these two sides that are agreeing to make everything at a standstill. There are people voting for the GOP who are moderates who desperately want to vote for a moderate party. But the Democratic Party, because they have a stranglehold on all visions forward, they are both the most conservative way forward and the most progressive way forward. So they fool the progressives into thinking they're for a really progressive party. Look at AOC and Bernie Sanders. No, they're only as progressive as the most conservative members. Think about it. If you're with a group of people and you're thinking of going on a theme park and you're going to go on a ride, and you've got the most conservative person that's like, I don't like scary or loops. And then you got the most wild person that's like, I want it all, make me wet and upside down. Well, if you all have to go together and agree on what ride you're going to go on, which one are you going to go on? The most conservative person wins. That explains the Democratic Party. That's why they can't get anything passed that seems progressive. But they tease us by pretending they're progressive. And so we're like, oh, they're so progressive when they're not. At the same time, they won't let any moderates leave the GOP because they pretend the GOP is like, look how progressive they are when they're not. Are you seeing this? Are you smelling what I'm cooking? Picking up what I'm putting down? So we have these two parties that have a stranglehold on the future. One is pretending to be progressive, one is regressive. The progressive one is really only as progressive as its business interests allow them to be. And the business interests fund both parties, but the ones that want to be more progressive fund the Democrats, but they want the pace of progress to be so slow and incremental that the business interests of the status quo can continue to contain it and make money off of it. And that's why progress is painfully slow, because it's got to go at the pace for us to control all of you MFers and make money off of you. No, that's too fast, because then we don't have control and power, and that's not what we want. I know it's not what you want. So anyway, here we are. Everyone's yelling and distracted. It's them, it's them, it's them, it's them. It's both of them. The distraction is anything that's not letting you know the two parties system is the problem is a distraction. Now, here's where triggered hyper-partisan liberals that have been taken over by Democratic propaganda based on fear. Ralph Nader. So the thing about third parties is this. They are amazing, and they've given us almost everything that matters in this country. Slavery was ended by a third party. The GOP was a third party. Abraham Lincoln was a third party candidate that ended slavery. Third parties don't have to win elections in order to make change. Third parties brought us, the influence of third parties brought us the income tax, Social Security, workers' rights, women's right to vote, the Green Movement. The Democratic Party was not green at all until they realized that they needed to co-opt that segment of the population. And so they worked hard to do that. And if they're going to co-opt that part of the population, the GOP is like, great, that made them lose. Great. Oh, now they're going to adopt that? Well, then we have to like non-adopt that. There was a moment there where like everyone was on the same page. Katrina, Inconvenient Truth, 2006, everyone was like, we believe it. And then the GOP and the fossil fuel was like, we need to obfuscate. But the Democratic Party was never a green party. They were influenced by third-party voters. Obama signed the Paris Agreement and then proceeded to not abide by it. It was toothless. There was nothing mandatory about it. There were no penalties. And under Obama and Biden, nothing was done to meet the agreement they signed. I just want to say that again. Nothing was done to try and meet that agreement by Obama. Biden tried. And they had a bill that was actually going to address the issue. You know who killed it? Oh, no, not the GOP. Oh, no, not Trump. Joe Manchin, a Democrat, the most conservative, corrupt coal baron Democrat, held it all up because the Democrats can only do what the most conservative members want to do. Remember that. Remember that. The Democratic Party is only as progressive as the most conservative member because they refuse to break in two and allow a moderate party and a progressive party. They're holding back the future. So you've got these progressives that think that, well, you should never vote for a third party. And the truth is you should always vote for a third party. But here's the deal. Only if you live in a safe state. Only if you live in a safe state. Are we too triggered and unable to resonate with the fact that if you live in a safe state, that means you're safe to vote third party? 90% of states are safe states. What's a safe state? It's so lopsided of a contest, there's no chance of the outcome changing. A blue voter in Montana voting for a third party, no chance to affect the outcome. A red voter in California voting for a third party, no chance to affect the outcome. There are only 7 states, 10% of the states, where you should absolutely not vote third party. Is this too hard to understand? Adults in the room, if you live in a safe state, never vote third party. Never. If you live in the other 90% of America where it's safe, you're totally safe to vote third party. And I've done the math. If you add up, and if we had a managed retreat in the states that will never win anyway and put those to a third party, they hit the 5% threshold that gets federal funding and pushes them over the edge. Suddenly we get them in Congress. We break the impasse. We have something that's more moderate. The GOP continues to get weaker and weaker immediately. So that's the cool thing, is it's very super easy. The next presidential election, just if you're in a safe state, vote third party. And we'll finally get that third party up there that will break the impasse. The third party will also make it clear to the other 2 parties what we really want. Because right now, with the system as it is, 90% of America doesn't get campaigned. They don't care what we think. They don't care what we think. Your vote's already counted. But if all of a sudden those safe states start to hemorrhage losing votes into a third party, they're going to suddenly start to care. Oh my gosh, we're showing up in your state. Why are you leaving us? We will change. What is it you want? You want the environment? Okay. You want us to stop supporting violence? Okay, please don't leave us. This is just facts and logic. This is how it works in the business world. Walmart sells more organic fruits and vegetables than any company in the United States, not because they're tree huggers or because laws force them to do it. It's because that's where the dollar votes went. They watched the dollar votes go to a third party, and they were like, where are people shopping now? Oh my God, we forgot to tell you how progressive we are. Look at all these organic fruits and vegetables, you guys. So a managed retreat in safe states, voting for third parties, will do 2 things. Number 1, elevate a third party, which is what we need immediately so that we can move forward and marginalize the backwards-facing GOP. And it will make the Democrats change because they always have. Anytime a third party shows up and says, this is what we want, and they see votes being siphoned away, they've always changed. That's why we have Social Security. That's why we have the income tax. That's why we have women's right to vote. That's why slavery ended. That's why we have the Green Movement. You don't have to win to make a difference voting third party. And you will never, ever, 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 ever throw the election if you're in a safe state. Is that so hard to understand? Only people in 10% of the states have the ability to throw the election by voting third party. 7 states. Don't vote third party in those 7 states. Everyone else, vote third party. We will get the change so quick, so fast. Campaigning will show up. The parties will be like, what are you doing? What do you want? We'll change. So that's how it's easy to get a third party support and get them into Congress and break this impasse. And the other cool thing is this. This is the sweet spot. This is like the secret cheat code that we're going to do to break this situation apart. So there used to be a nonprofit, nonpartisan group. I think it was the League of Women Voters. I didn't bother Googling it. They used to run the presidential debates, televised debates. They were a big deal. And the rule was you just had to get 5% of polling, not votes. Just before the presidential election, people had to be talking about 5% of the American public had to be talking about your name. and you get on stage. John Anderson on stage, boom, siphoned up a lot of votes because people are desperate for a third one. Ross Perot showed up, boom, 5%, a lot of votes, woo! That scared the two parties so much, that's when the Democrats knocked on the Republicans' door and said, whoa, whoa, whoa. We can't be having change, can we? I mean, that's unacceptable. We can't give people choices, options. We don't really want things to progress as fast as they have in the rest of the modern world. So they made a deal. The Democratic Party made a deal. The Democratic Party made a deal to restrict the future and restrict the choices and to ensure progress is as slow as possible. They said to the GOP, we're going to take over the debates, you and I, and we're going to set a threshold of 15% so no one will ever reach it and ever get on stage and ever challenge us again. And then the two of us can play good cop, bad cop, and stay in power and ruin everything for the world in the future because business interests, military interests rule. And the GOP was like, sounds good to us. So ever since then, no one's gotten on stage. But here's why it's easy to put them on stage. It's just talking about them before the election. It's just talking. It's just talking. If 15% of Americans talk about a third-party candidate to pollsters, they'll get on stage. You can still vote. You can live in an unsafe state in 10% of the states where it's a battleground state. You can live there, vote blue, not throw the election, but talk to pollsters about third parties. That's how easy this is. So all we have to do is talk about third parties all the way up until the election, and they'll get on stage. And you'll watch the Democrats be like, no, we're not trying to actually solve problems. We're not trying to unlock the potential of a happier future. We're not trying to give people a diverse opinions and choices forward. We're not trying to make things work. We're not trying to change the old system. We want to be the perpetual losers in a rigged system, you guys, because that gives us a lot of power. And watch, they'll set it to be like 25% to get on stage now. But hopefully you see where I'm getting at. Just talk about third party to pollsters. They're on stage. Vote for third parties if you live in a safe state, which is almost all of us. And they will get boosted and they'll get in Congress. We're not trying to elect a third party president. We're trying to get a third party in the game so that we have one backwards facing party that's small in the minority and at least two that are facing forward that agree to go forward and always outvote the other one. That's why the rest of the developing world has what we don't. That is the problem. That is the solution. Anything else is a distraction. Blood is on the hands of the Democrats. They could have won that last election. But it's more important to serve the business and military and interests of Israel and murder innocent children and condemn the future to violence and two sides to everything. They did that and lost the election. It's in their own report that they now refuse to release. If the reason they lost the election was the other guys and it fed the story of the other guys, why would they keep it secret? So we have all the evidence in the world that the Democratic Party is a fake progressive party. Their business interests, when Bernie was going to beat Trump in 2016, 10 years ago, they said, we can't have that happen. No. We're bought and paid for by the healthcare industry. And they say, no, Bernie. Bernie was scheduled to win. So the Democrats made sure that he lost. And they didn't really care because they just got to stay in power. And the healthcare industry got what they wanted. So the Democratic Party has intentionally lost those two elections to Trump because they're more interested in serving their business interests than the interest of the future, babies born and unborn, and the interest of the American people. The facts just show that. In 2024, the American public and the young voters that pushed Biden over the top were ready to put Harris in office. But then she was told, don't you ever say anything critical about Israel. Don't say anything pro-Gaza. And so the youth voters said, oh, bye-bye. Yeah. But if someone's a hyper-partisan liberal who believes propaganda, oh no, the last election was never the fault of the Democratic Party. It's somebody else. It has to be. Who can we blame? It's Elon Musk. It's machines. It's third-party people. It's not us. It's us. It's us. It's the Democratic Party. They're full of shit. They threw those two elections with Clinton and Harris. They could have won them with Bernie Sanders and with a pro-Gaza message. They're hiding that. Fact. Google it. So what do? The reason we're having this war is because the Democratic Party. They made it clear. Kill people, Israel. We're not going to say anything. We'll lose elections over it. Let that guy go in. And we'll be silent. So what do? You protest the Democratic Party. You protest the two-party system. You protest their corrupt pro-donor, pro-business, pro-military, pro-Israel stance. You protest them through buying different things and spending money differently. You protest them by taking your vote elsewhere where it really matters. Voting third party isn't a wasted vote. Voting for the Democratic Party in a state that is already so lopsided they've won it, that's the only wasted vote out there, because that vote could have been sent to a third party that would break all of this bullshit wide open. So it's that easy to break this impasse. Vote third party every time you can. Be aware of when you shouldn't. Most of the time you can. There are times when you shouldn't. Is that too hard? I don't think it is. But it doesn't serve the interests of the status quo, the business, the military, the pro-Israel. So you're not going to hear about it on the media. You're not going to hear about it from politicians. You're only going to hear about it from the third-party fairy. So it's all a distraction. It's all a distraction. All of it. If we're being told to focus on Trump and the GOP, that's a distraction. Anything that doesn't put the focus on the Democratic Party and how they are a failure and how they're restricting our ability to move forward as a country and as a nation, as a world, anything that's not talking about that is a distraction. Now, hyperpartisan liberals will get triggered when I say it's a distraction, thinking, well, so you're ignoring that? You're saying we should not pay attention to any, don't pay attention to Epstein, don't pay attention to the harm and violence being done to women and girls? I never said that. Here's what a distraction is. I'm a police officer watching a hostage situation, and there's some hostages right there, but a man takes a baby, one of the hostage takers takes a baby and starts going away from them. That's a distraction. They want me to not pay attention to what the rest of them are doing. Does that mean you should ignore the distraction? No. That means that you should be aware that they're trying to distract you and that is important, but don't lose focus on what's really important. And be aware that you're being played. And the distraction means they don't want you to focus on the thing. So all of these things are horrible, and they're just going to continue to be horrible, and they're going to continue to be distractions, and the world's going to continue to fall apart, and we're all going to continue to be told that we have to pick sides and fight each other. Meanwhile, we're going to be told to just consume to oblivion, slurp up the earth, and trim our imaginations to just believe what two pro-business, pro-military, pro-Israel political cartels believe we should think. But we're smarter than that, because we're our own persons, we're our own beings, and we're independent thinkers, and we can see through the lies, and it's all a distraction unless they're telling you a third party is the way out of this. That's all I got.